Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take one topic and really get our hands dirty, digging out the coolest and most useful stuff from your research pile. Today, we're tackling a classic,
Okay.
Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point.
Right.
We've all heard about it, but this deep dive is about going beyond the buzzwords.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts, studies, the whole shebang to help you really understand what makes trends spread like wildfire.
I liked it.
Now, Gladwell kicks things off with a story that'll grab you.
Okay.
Picture 1990s New York City.
Yeah.
Crime was rampant, but then almost overnight things shift.
Wow.
Murders plummet by 64% in just 5 years.
Really?
How do you even begin to explain that?
Yeah, that's wild. Well, that's where Gladwell's central idea comes in.
Okay.
The tipping point. It's not about gradual change, but those sudden, often unexpected shifts, much like an epidemic sweeping through a population.
An epidemic of safer streets.
Right.
That's kind of a brain twist.
It is.
Yeah.
And to grasp how powerful this idea is, imagine folding a piece of paper in half, then in half again.
Okay.
Do that 50 times.
Okay.
Most people figure you'd have a thick stack, right?
Yeah, I would assume so.
But it's way more dramatic than that.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How thick are we talking?
That stack folded 50 times would reach the sun.
What?
Mind-blowing, right?
That's insane.
That's the crazy power of geometric progression.
Wow.
It's how things tip, whether it's a disease or a new idea suddenly everyone seems to have.
All right, I'm officially seeing paper differently now. But how does this actually work with people? Gladwell dives into the roles folks play in these social epidemics, right?
He does?
Connectors, Mavens, Salesmen.
Yeah.
Are we born with these roles or what?
It's less about being born into a role and more about how we operate within our networks.
Okay.
Take connectors, for example.
Right.
They're the ones who seem to know everyone effortlessly bridging social circles.
Ah, so like the ultimate networkers.
Exactly.
Always introducing people, making connections.
Exactly. Gladwell uses the example of Lois Weisberg in Chicago.
Okay.
She's been involved in everything from theater to publishing to city government.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is her knack for connecting with people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
Artists,
Yeah.
lawyers,
Mhm.
politicians, you name it.
Okay, that's impressive.
Right.
But is it just about knowing a ton of people? How does that actually spark a tipping point?
It's about the quality of those connections.
Okay.
Connectors have a knack for bringing together the right mix of people at the right time, creating a fertile ground for ideas to spread.
Yeah.
They're like social catalysts.
So connectors get the ball rolling. What about those mavens we hear so much about? How do they fit into the social equation?
If connectors spark the fire, mavens are the ones with all the kindling ready to go.
Okay.
They're driven by information.
Right.
They devour it,
Yeah.
analyze it, and can't wait to share those insights to help you make better decisions.
Ah, so they're like human search engines, but with a personal touch?
Precisely.
Okay.
It's not just about hoarding knowledge,
Right.
but contextualizing it for others.
Right.
Gladwell talks about this Professor Mark Alpert, who's obsessed with finding the best deals.
Yep.
This guy could tell you the optimal day to buy a winter coat based on historical sales data and probably the best store credit card to maximize your savings while he's at it.
I know the type. They're like walking consumer reports.
Exactly.
Useful to have around for sure. But we've also got these salesman figures.
Right.
Are they the ones who finally convince us to buy that winter coat even if we don't need it?
You got it. Salesmen have that knack for persuasion.
Okay.
And it's often about subtle cues, their energy, even body language.
Really?
For example, did you know that simply nodding your head while listening can make you more likely to agree with what's being said?
Interesting.
Salesmen are masters of those tiny influences.
Fascinating. So it's not just the words, but the whole package they're selling. Okay, so we've got info spreading thanks to connectors and mavens. Maybe a salesman nudges us along, but not everything becomes a trend, right?
Right.
Gladwell talks about stickiness.
Yes.
What makes certain ideas latch on and never let go?
Exactly.
Right.
A great example is Sesame Street.
Okay.
They revolutionized children's TV, not just with catchy songs, but by meticulously engineering stickiness in every episode.
I'm all ears because honestly, I thought Sesame Street was just chaos to adults.
Right.
How'd they make it stick with kids?
They used a clever technique called the distractor.
Okay.
Basically, they'd show kids an episode, but also have something else visually distracting happening in the room.
Oh, interesting.
By observing what held the kids' attention despite the distractions they could measure, what truly resonated.
Sneaky. So what did they find? What makes good kid content stick?
One surprise, Relatable characters trunked cute animals.
Really?
Kids were more engaged by characters facing relatable problems than, say, a kitten batting at a yarn ball, even though that's objectively adorable.
Huh. So even for kids, it's about connecting to the content on a deeper level. Gladwell compares this to Blue's Clues, right?
Yes.
Another show that seemed to captivate toddlers everywhere.
And Blue's Clues took stickiness even further.
Okay.
They embraced a slower pace, tons of repetition, and encouraged interaction.
Yeah.
This challenged the assumption that kids have short attention spans.
Right.
Turns out they were happy to watch the same episode multiple times, picking up new details each time.
Okay, that's pretty cool. It
Yeah.
feels like we're hardwired to crave repetition if it's done right. But enough theory. Gladwell gives us some real-world case studies to show how these tipping point factors collide,
I
right?
go, absolutely. Take the Hush Puppy shoes.
Okay.
They were practically a relic of the past until the mid-90s when out of nowhere they explode back into fashion.
Yeah, what was up with that? I remember those being more of a grandparent shoe back in the day.
And that's precisely what made them ripe for a tipping point.
Okay.
Gladwell argues that a small group of fashion-forward individuals in New York City started wearing them, ironically.
Okay.
This got the attention of connectors who spread the trend to new circles. Mavens provided their take on the shoe's history and unique style, adding to the allure. And of course, salesmen in the fashion world saw an opportunity and amplified the trend.
So it's like a perfect storm of all these tipping point factors coming together. And speaking of unexpected trends, Gladwell also connects this idea to the drop in crime in New York City, right?
He does, linking it to the broken windows theory, which suggests that visible signs of crime and disorder, like graffiti or vandalism, can actually encourage more serious crime.
So by cleaning up the city even in small ways, they shifted the whole environment.
Exactly. It sent a message that even minor infractions mattered. This, combined with other initiatives, created a tipping point towards a safer city. But it's important to remember, tipping points aren't always positive. Gladwell also explores the tragic suicide epidemic in Micronesia.
That's a much darker example.
It is, and it highlights how even extreme behaviors can be contagious within a certain context.
Yeah.
Gladwell points to the influence of permission givers, individuals whose actions, often tragically through suicide, inadvertently give others permission to follow suit.
That's a sobering thought that something so heartbreaking can have this ripple effect. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from folding paper to Sesame Street to some pretty intense social phenomena. What's the big takeaway from all this? What should we be reflecting on after this deep dive into the tipping point?
Gladwell challenges us to think differently about how change happens.
Okay.
It's rarely a straight line, but more like a web of interconnected factors, often small and seemingly insignificant, that can build up to these moments of dramatic shift.
It makes you wonder, what seemingly small things are we encountering every day that could be part of some bigger tipping point, for better or for worse? It's a whole new lens on the world.
Absolutely. By understanding these principles, we can become more aware of the forces shaping our world and maybe even find ways to influence them.
I love that. It's not just about spotting trends, but understanding the mechanics behind them. The tipping point really gives you a new perspective on the power of small things. So if you're fascinated by human behavior, how ideas spread, or just want to see the world with fresh eyes, this book is a must-read. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.